Teaching English through translation. Is translation a good way to teach English? The way life is changing nowadays, the global works, the communication requires people to have multitasking abilities. Global jobs seek for people with advanced language skills. Schools offer well-designed language education in their beliefs. Schools advise their language teachers to follow their curriculum and stick to syllables that are prepared following the latest trends in foreign language teaching. Translation can be regarded as a skill that can be used professionally when a person reaches higher language levels. In addition to this, translation can also be used as a means to achieve learning or at least to aid the learning process. There are registers of translation used back in the Egyptians 3100 before Christ. Translation between languages was used mainly for religious or conquering matters, up to the 19th century when it was the principal method to teach foreign or second languages, with the grammar translation method. Nowadays, many teachers reject using translation or L1 in their classes, yet research shows that there are teachers who resort to it for various matters. Mal, Walker, and Cook, 2010. L1 use is requiring translation activities. It could also be used as correcting learner mistakes and giving explanations, clarifying, giving the L1 meanings of unknown words, or talking about classroom rooms. Translation is considered as a weakness of the teacher, but it may have a positive effect on the learners, making them less stressed or more motivated. As House in 2009 notes, far from being an obstacle to learning a foreign language, the L1 is a useful resource on which learners can draw to ease their way to more secure knowledge of and proficiency in the foreign language. The relationship between language learning and translation seems inevitable. The more proficient learners become in a language, the more competent they are likely to be at translation. Translation can also be used to gain proficiency in a language. In the final report of the European Project Translation and Language Learning, the role of translation in teaching of languages in the European Union, 2013, translation is found to be related to language learning based on three propositions. The first of these says that translation and language learning are opposites and there would be no need for translation if everyone could use all languages perfectly. The second notes that translation and language learning complement each other, which means translation is required because it is not possible for everyone to know a language and language learning is required for a translator to master a language. The third considers that translation is intrinsic in language learning and it can also be considered to be the fifth language skill. Over the last years, translation has been associated with form rather than meaning, with accuracy, the artificiality of language, and with teacher-centered teaching. These associations have been the result of the influence that the grammar translation method had on foreign language teaching. Translation is a resource that may introduce a large number of benefits within the foreign language classroom, and which may facilitate the process of acquisition of a new language at the same time that it makes students feel engaged with it. 5. As Castro writes, this conscious learning of the language would make it more suitable to implement translation at higher levels, since adults would have a better knowledge of the L1 and a corresponding meta-language. Castro, 2015. Translation may not be as useful at one level than in another. Teachers must adapt how translation is implemented in the classroom, depending on the student's level of the foreign language and even in their L1. Thus, it follows that in upper levels, translation can be explored more properly than at lower levels. Adults' knowledge of their language make it possible to discuss language differences, comparisons, and in-depth translations. For lower levels, translation may be used as a means to explain grammar, to give instructions, to check students' understanding, to break the routine, or to allow learners to express their thoughts and feelings. For higher levels, translation can contribute to reflecting upon syntactic and semantic issues or discussing translation problems. Be that as it may, translation takes part in language learning and it must not be forgotten. However, translation in advanced level, foreign language learner is even more feasible and students overall welcome it willingly. Students in higher levels usually enjoy activities of translation and feel motivated when dealing with cultural issues. They also like to overcome problems when they encounter concepts that do not have equivalents in their mother tongue. This way, students acquire strategies for paraphrasing and expanding their potential of expression in the L1 and in the foreign language. The use of translation in language teaching is useful to examine what extent the students have understood text, vocabulary, or even syntactic elements of their language. In this sense, we must bear in mind that translation is an activity not only for learning the foreign language, but also for being aware of the differences between one language and another, for acquiring reflection upon one's language, and for mastering the L1. Nishida, 2019. Furthermore, it is worth highlighting the necessity to take into consideration that translation has to be developed as a means to improve the language, and that it has to be regarded as a whole. Consequently, the implementation of translation within the classroom is not focused on the creation of a new result, but on the learning through the process of doing it. When translating, take into account your proficiency in both languages, L1 and foreign language, and the culture behind the text you are translating. You also need to consider the audience you are addressing to, plus the culture and interests they have. To sum up, translation can be a great tool to help you remember vocabulary and collocations. Translation can help you notice different ways of expressing things in your new language, and when you are translating into L2, it forces you to produce them precisely. This is the reason it is used so often by some of the world's best language learners. Thus, translation is a skill in itself, particularly when you are mediating from others between two cultures. I am now planning my classes including some translation. In that way, I want to make sure my students have understood the use of a certain instruction, the precise meaning of an expression, and improve the cultural awareness of other countries. I have also understood that there is no need to avoid the use of L1. It can be